But I guess my biggest fear is being homeless. Not necessarily being broke, but being homeless is my biggest fear.
Imagine this, if we were taught finance from like 13 years old and entrepreneurship and business. Imagine where you could be at 20.
If I hadn't gone for that interview, I don't know where I'd be right now. And that's the honest truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'd like to say a big thank you for today's podcast sponsor, which is Casita Properties, the UK leading property company when it comes to discreet off-market buy-to-let sales. And I have the pleasure of welcoming for a third time, good friend of mine, Pete Komolafe. Thanks so much for coming on the channel, mate.
No, not a problem, mate. It feels like I've got to come here to catch you because we can't even catch each other on a Warzone.
I know. A bit of background. Me and Pete are absolutely killing COD for anyone else who's on there, and DM us and we'll get you involved.
Yeah.
But Pete, what we're going to do today is we're going to, previously to give the audience and the watchers that overview, if you haven't yet watched the other episodes, and they'll be included somewhere on the screen, is that we predominantly talk about finance, how to look after your money. We've talked about investment apps, but what we're going to do today is actually take it back to the bare bones of who Pete Komolafe is. You're making some awesome strides. I love watching what you're doing. Pete's most recently featured on Lorraine Kelly's show, which is awesome, and Secret Spender, or is it Secret
Spenders, yeah.
Secret Spender on Channel 4. So you're doing incredible things. Let's take it back a step. What was Pete Komolafe's life like growing up?
It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was the typical one, typical kind of background. Look, if I look at the circle of my mates, they all have like the typical family structure, right? You live with your mum and dad, and then if you move around with family. Then you pick up different groups of friends wherever you move. Mine isn't like that at all. It's very divided, if you will. So I was born in 79. My parents are Nigerian. They came over in the 70s. They had me. I'm the last of four boys, essentially. So they were studying, they were working. They probably had like 4 jobs each. They were studying at the same time. So then they had me. And it was like, they couldn't afford to give up a job. And they started to continue working. And back in the 70s, it was commonplace for people who came up from like places like Nigeria to put ads in the paper to then put your kid out for foster care. That's basically what they did. So I was fostered from when I was 3 months all the way up until when I was 8 years old. And then they went back to Nigeria when I was about 7-ish or so. And then they had the bright idea, like, we're just going to send for you in 1988, basically. So it was supposed to be a 2-week holiday. I ended up going over there, spent 10 years, then came back when I was 18, just turning 19. So like my background and my upbringing hasn't been the typical one. It's almost like broken between 2 families, my foster parents, who in my early years identified as my real mum and dad, and then my real mum and dad that I only got to really know for 10 years whilst I was like in Nigeria before they sent me all the way back. So it's a little divided, I would say, and not the typical upbringing that you would expect or see in general society.
Yeah, no, for sure. I suppose the question off the back of that is, with that sort of uncertainty and sort of brokenness, I suppose, in not knowing what's what, especially when you're that young anyway, and sort of you don't have that. I suppose, you know, a lot of people, we don't count our blessings when actually we have that stable platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but people often don't realise it.
They don't realise
it's the norm for them. And it's not norm for everyone, but you don't know until you see what isn't the norm.
Yeah, which is totally true, which is the next question. How did you sort of have, because look, you are an entrepreneur. You're someone that has a lot of drive and is spinning a lot of plates. You know, we speak off camera, and what you're doing now and building the businesses that you're building, at what point, with that sort of uncertainty as you were growing up, did you know that you wanted more?
I would say that I knew that I wanted more. I don't think I knew how it was going to happen. I mean, you hear people on social media say that they always knew that it was going to be a certain way. I haven't always known it was going to be a certain way. I think I'm definitely a byproduct of my experiences, and my experiences have taught me that, you know, there are almost 2 worlds out there. We're very, very lucky in the UK and in Western society to be concerned with, you know, what phone we have and how big is our widescreen TV. I know that, I live that, but I've also had 10 years where I've also experienced, no running water, no electricity, no food for 3-4 days, like really like breadline stuff, relying on neighbors to, feed you and the family, and you return the favor when they don't have any. So I've come from that to this. So I guess that has given me a unique perspective, I guess, on the word opportunity, and the fact that, I did come back when I was 18. When they sent me back, they gave me 50 quid. My foster parents hadn't heard from me for 10 years, pretty much. So for them to be like, just go back to your foster parents' house, here's £50. There's me being all naive, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get to go back on a plane to the UK. I've been thinking about this for 5 years. To then all of a sudden land at Heathrow and be like, okay, what if they don't live at the same address? What am I going to do? I've only got £50. So luckily they did, but they only took me in for a short period of time. And I had to be independent and go out and find a job and do all that kind of stuff. And I've been homeless through all of this. So I know that I've wanted more. I never knew how it was going to happen. But I guess my biggest fear is being homeless. Not necessarily being broke, but being homeless is my biggest fear. And I think internally that's been the biggest driver towards everything kind of that I do now, because it isn't just about making a load of money. Money's fine, money's great, but at the same time, how many people can I pull up behind me who are maybe from the same background, who could learn from some of the lessons that I've learned the hard way through my life?
It's interesting because to where you are now, and this is a question that I get asked often actually, and I think we discussed this on your channel, is how do you get into finance? Because I think from the outside, and I think I think finance is one of those industries that you almost, I think people's perspective of it, you have to be within circles to get into a decent position in finance. Yeah. So how did you go from that sort of not knowing really where you stood, you came over to the UK to really start again? How did you then sort of enter the world of finance from what might seem not a lot really?
Oh man, how I got into finance is just... We're recording this the day after I was on Lorraine, and obviously we've got the Channel 4 show going out right now. And it's weird because having the show on Channel 4 is one thing. That's great because it's a 4-week thing. We spent like a month filming. It's out there in the world now. Lorraine, for some reason, yesterday was very, very strange because it was surreal. I've been watching Lorraine for years and years and years. So to know that I was going to go on, it should have been the previous week. It got cancelled because of the Bank of England. It happened yesterday. And part of me was like, they're going to cancel. I'm not going to be on the show. And the strangest thing happened yesterday, because it's daytime TV. I had a lot of people who obviously know about my story and have known me for a while message me. And there was one person in particular who messaged me that I spoke about her in my documentary, a lady called Jenny Berry. And she's the lady who gave me my first job in financial services. Now, I used to be really, really bad with money. As a byproduct of being homeless, the only way that I could afford to pay for things, food, was to bounce checks back in the day when you could write a check. And I was on benefits at the time. And back then it was, well, if you don't prove that you're going for interviews at the job center, they basically cut you off benefits. So the consultant said to me, there's a number of interviews here. We want you to go to each of them. And one of them was for a building society in Eastbourne. And I was like, it's a building society. Like, I'm not going to get a job. Like, I owe these banks money. They're going to look at my record and they're not going to give me a job. He goes, well, if you don't go, you'll lose your benefits. So I reluctantly went, and I was so disinterested in this interview. I rocked up in jeans and a leather jacket thinking, if I mess this up as much as I possibly could, the woman would just tell me to walk out, be gone, and I can go back to job centre and be like, listen, I tried, she didn't like me, I can carry on benefits, happy days, right?
The day, right?
And she messaged me yesterday, and I said to her, because I do have to pinch myself, especially yesterday, I had to pinch myself a little bit to be like, I've been homeless worked through financial services when I really shouldn't have been working there in the first place, to being on daytime TV with Lorraine with potential to do more. And I've got a show on Channel 4. And I had to pinch myself. And she messaged me saying, I'm so proud of you. And I had to remind her, you're the one who set me on this path all those years ago. And I honestly don't know what she saw in me, but she said, I believed in you. And I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. Kid walks in completely disinterested, jeans, leather jacket, and she sees something and she goes, my customers are going to love you. And she gave me a chance. And it really started there. And I look back at it now. This is 16 years on. If I hadn't gone for that interview, I don't know where I'd be right now. And that's the honest truth.
I think this is a really important takeaway for people, is that I think this starts from who you are as a person. I think you probably showed that you were likable. They could probably see something in you, because I have similar questions where people ask me, how did you get into finance? And I think that question is asked with a little bit of a jaw drop, because when you look at someone, you make an assumption. And if you were to look at me right now, he's covered in tattoos. That is the first thing. And I have to deal with that. That I know that's the first judgment. But I actually think it's from, if I pull it back to the basics of what happened, it was, I met the right people. I think I made an impression. I was likable, and I was given an opportunity. And it's nice to then look back and think, actually, it was hard work. There was a lot of effort put in. And it's not the easiest industry to get into. And I think I see that in your story, is that actually probably someone saw the possibility, because I think, don't you, what's your views on this? Don't you think those that are kind of older than us, sometimes I think we take for granted, people who are older, they do have a broader view on life.
They have wisdom.
And I think sometimes we like to think that we know it all. Whereas actually, I think other people can see things in us and think, actually, that person... I tell you what, I'll give you an example. I don't know about you, but when I walk through the park and I see a young football team, you can see a good player, but that player won't know that they're any better than the other 8, 9-year-olds. Yeah. But you can see a good player. And it's exactly the same. So I tell you what would be your... If anyone's looking at this thinking, I'd love to get into finance, what would your top tips be?
That's a really good question. I think that the industry isn't as attractive as it used to be, and that's really unfortunate. Back when I started, it was, if you worked for a bank, it was prestigious. If you became a bank manager, you were doing well.
Yeah.
I think the world's moved on a little bit, and the industry's had quite a few scandals, bad reputation. Some of it actually very much due and justified. I think the finance industry is changing. I mean, there are so many roles that you can go into. I mean, retail banking, you've got corporate banking. And this is the thing that I didn't understand and didn't know at the time. You think of it as just working in a bank. Actually, it's far beyond that. There is so much that you can do. And you need people to be able to nurture you, I guess, is the biggest thing. And I've had a lot of sponsors, people who were like, we'll give him an opportunity because I think he'll do really, really well. I think for anyone who wants to get into finance now, I think just take an interest in how finance basically works. Like I said, there are so many facets to it. There's retail banking, corporate banking, there's wealth management. You can go into investment management. You talk about investment management, wealth management, those are very, very lucrative careers, like very, very much so. There are so many avenues you can go in, but take an interest and explore what the opportunities are. I mean, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff is a great networking tool now. Reach out to people, speak to recruitment agents for that specific sector, because you never really know in conversations that you have and people that where you're going to end up.
Oh, 100%.
And the network, the way it works is crazy. I mean, the whole, again, going back to Lorraine and this whole TV debacle, that all came about because my mate, who I've known for years as a producer, and he has a friend called Amelia, and Amelia was like, oh yeah, you should speak to my mate who runs a PR company. And it's like, okay, I had a chat with him. And then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to come from the people that you meet. And those conversations are often quite innocuous. They're kind of like, low level, under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good to meet you, mate. And, nice to see you. Catch you later on. And it turns out, actually, it turns into something else later on.
Yeah, it's exploring it, isn't it? You've got to be open to these opportunities. I would I had a group call with a LinkedIn group that I run, and we're going through the power of LinkedIn. And I always talk about what can be achieved and who you can meet on LinkedIn. And it's insane. I said it's unlikely on Instagram you'll rub shoulders or talk to someone who's turning over £100 million company. It's unlikely because they probably won't answer their DMs. The funny thing is, hop onto LinkedIn and you could actually be speaking to someone who is a CEO director of a company that is turning over 100 million. And I showed my group a good friend of mine, and I showed them his profile, and I said, how much do you think his net worth is? And they went, well, 10 million, 20 million. I went, no. Anyway, I let them all guess. Someone went up to 100 million. He's 182 million. And I brought up his company accounts, and we went through the company's house and his filing, and they couldn't believe it. And when you look at his profile, you would never know that individual.
But here's the interesting thing, right? He's on LinkedIn, right? Social media today will tell you or have you believe that he should be on Instagram.
Yeah.
And this is the bit that drives me nuts. It's like Instagram, I mean, it's great as a tool, but don't pay attention to what you see on Instagram 100% of the time. Because a lot of the most successful people that even I know, they're not on Instagram. They're not making moves on Instagram. There's a saying that I've just come across recently, and it's probably an old one, but I absolutely love it because it is so true, right? You never hear a tree grow. So everyone who's shouting and making noise, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. Okay, really?
Yeah.
The guys who are really doing things, they're not making any noise about it. They're just getting on and doing their stuff. You don't need to hear it because it shows in the proof of work that they're basically doing.
Yeah.
And social media is such an interesting place. And I've got a love-hate relationship, and I'm sure you have as well. It's a love-hate relationship with social media right now. But it's just, there are certain expectations that are set that I just think are, number one, unrealistic, and it kind of puts people on the wrong path and the wrong idea. Like, even if you look at and listen to anybody's story, the way things are panned out for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pan out for X, Y, Z. You can take lessons from it, but you've got to do the hard yards.
Yeah.
And being able to, and trying to replicate another person's process 100% of the time probably won't work, but you can take little lessons from it.
I think that's nail on the head. I think we need to go over that again for anyone watching, is that we have our Gary V's, we have our Grant Cardones, not that he's my favourite, but we have these influential people that state this is what you need to do. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people listen to them and they think, well, that's how my life needs to be, rather than this is my circumstances. I'll take segments of what they're saying and I'll try and apply that in a realistic way. Yeah. And, you know, I can't remember who I was having the conversation with the other day, and they turned around and they were like, it just seems like everyone's always flying to Dubai or flying on holiday and working remotely. And even I turned around and said, even I wonder that, because I think, well, I'm boots on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm constantly, you know, like...
You're in the trenches doing the work. And it's like, I don't have time to go to Dubai. Like, how do these people get time to go do it? And then you hear porta potty stories and stuff. And like, oh my God. Like,
I mean, you take it, you know, there's that old saying, take it with a pinch of salt. And, you know, take it with a big bit of salt-based salt, because half of it is... I mean, look, how much would it cost for us to go and hire a Rolls Royce right now?
Oh, listen.
I mean, if we put it together...
Yeah. I mean, I was in Dubai Christmas and New Year's, and I had a Lamborghini and a Ferrari out on a day, and I was so tempted. I could have so easily just made a video and be like, guys, this is my Lamborghini. I've moved to Dubai. If you want to make some money, you need to join my group right now. I'll get you to buy this Lamborghini in like 3 months' time, I promise. And there will be tons of people who would join that group, even though it will be 100% fake. Part of me still tempted to do it. Because you can build a website that will look legit. You can have the Discord group. You can have everything to look legit and post a video like that. People would believe it, hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. I'm still tempted to do it because people need to know that what people are showing you isn't 100% true 100% of the time.
Yeah, you can fluff things up pretty easily. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. It takes a good bit of marketing. Yeah. And a good bit of footage. Yeah. And then all of, you know, like I always openly say, you know, when we were going into Mayfair and stuff like that, like all the Ubers, they were just Ubers. You know, they weren't, it wasn't a day car, it wasn't a hired car, it wasn't our cars, you know, they're Ubers, you know, and what's that costing you? Like 20, 30 quid. Mm-hmm. Anyone can do it, but it looks great for the footage. Yeah. If you could go back to 20 years old, okay, and just have this perspective with the knowledge that you have now that we can share with people that are watching this, and you go back to 20 years old, how would you look at finance? How would you look at your progression in business? What would you do different?
I wouldn't do anything major different. And I know that that sounds dismissive, but the reason for that is this, right? So with everything that's happening right now, I can't say that I'm 100% responsible for it because there isn't a concrete plan. I've listened to my intuition all the way through Conversation of Money, the whole thing. It's listening to my intuition. And that stopped me from doing things that I would typically do if I was being 100% business focused. And listening to that intuition so far has paid off. And I think that's really, really important, to follow your intuition. And where, again, social media will tell you, and it has been telling me, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should be doing this. I'm kind of like, no, because it's not true to how I want to be seen. I want my brand to be seen. And it's not true to the way, I guess, for me, how I want to operate. And so I wouldn't change anything purely because someone said this to me when I was younger, and it didn't make any sense then, but it does make sense now. You cannot connect the dots moving forward. You can connect them moving backwards. And now that I look back, everything that has happened has got me here, has added purpose to what I'm doing right now. So if I was to change anything, I wouldn't change anything significant, because if I change something significant, what I'm doing right now would not be what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I'd be somewhere completely different. And the joy is in the journey. The lessons that I've learned, the hardships that I've been through, it makes all the wins so much sweeter, and the personal development that comes off the back of that as well. I would probably change little things. Like, I really should have started YouTube back in 2018. I didn't. I was too scared. I was still in a very good job with golden handcuffs. I was like, I don't want to give this up. If I could change anything, I would definitely change that. I would do little things strategically different, maybe make some decisions a bit smarter, a bit more streamlined. But there isn't anything significant that I would change, because if I change that, it would change where I am right now.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely thankful for where I am right now.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I think the only thing that I would look back and think, if I could change it, knowing what I know now, is I heard this the other day, is that the best time to work your socks off is between like 18 and 22. But in hindsight, and actually looking back, I just do not think that we're just mentally developed. I don't think we'll ever be ready at such a young age. Like, it's a little bit backwards that we go to school, we learn things that we need to know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
I've never used geography, I've never used history. I'm rubbish at maths. And then we go through this long period where actually, if we were taught, imagine this, if we were taught finance from like 13 years old and entrepreneurship and business, imagine where you could be at 20. Through your 20s, imagine how many millionaires and multimillionaires there would be. People would be flying. And I think it's a disservice to us that we're not taught that. But we only really learn this when we become, like you say, it's about enjoying the journey and like molding yourself.
Yeah.
When you get into your late 20s or early 30s, and then you look back and you think, okay, now I've got the foundations. And that's annoying, because we look back now and think, God, only if I knew at 20 what I know now, my God.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be doing TV stuff when I was in 33, 10 years before. But the reality is that that's not the way it's panned out for me. I do think you're right, though. And this is one of the things that I'm very passionate about. And again, when I think about my business and my brand, I always have to go back to what was the fundamental reason why I wanted to start it. The fundamental reason why I wanted to start Conversation of Money was to have conversations with people who were in their 20s, mid-20s, about things that I wish someone had told me when I was that age. That's what the brand is all about at the end of the day. So that is very true to everything I do. The podcast, the YouTube channels, everything, even to what I'm doing now with Channel 4 and any other stuff that I do in the media moving forward. That is at the core of it. It's to share what I've picked up through 15, 16 years in financial services with people who are much, much younger, because the biggest asset we all have, and sometimes don't have, is time. And if you know these things right off the bat when you're 18, 19, 20, and you can just form positive habits, the impact, like investments, will just compound, and it gives you choice. It gives you freedom. You don't have to worry about, getting on a property ladder and all this kind of stuff. And when am I going to have enough money to retire? Do I have choices? You have those choices, but we have to get round this insidious culture of it's got to be now, it's got to be quick, instant gratification, not wanting to look into the long grass. I mean, look at what's going on with Luna right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. We talk about diversification, we're boring. This is why.
Yeah.
There's a guy I saw in one of my WhatsApp groups yesterday. A guy had $1 million. It was worth $400. How do you deal with that? And that happened within the space of a day. How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
When we talk about, trying not to think about that short-term gain, think about it from a long-term point of view and make sensible decisions. I know it's hard for people to be able to understand unless something like this happens. And you can't foresee it, but that's the whole point. Especially when you're dealing with investments, it's trying to anticipate the unthinkable, diversifying accordingly. These are all important lessons that I guess sometimes you have to learn through experience. But hopefully the more people say it on social media and the more evidence we have in social interactions, younger people will start to listen because they're facing a completely different ballgame now. They really, really are.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's being thrown in their face. I mean, that's the thing. We are in a world where everything's instant.
Yeah.
We've spoken about this before. You open up an app, you can do it in minutes. And I think the people that do really well, and anyone that really listens to this and takes this on board, are the people that can sit there at 20 years old and imagine themselves at 50.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people can't do that because it's like, what? Hang on a minute. YOLO. I'm here, crypto, NFTs. What do you want about 50? I'm going to be a multi-millionaire by 50.
Yeah.
That's not the way to plan it. And it's insane. And, for those that can diversify, have a game plan, stick to it, try and cash flow as much as possible, and then imagine themselves from 20 to 50, they'll be the wealthy people.
Yeah.
And the likelihood is they'll be wealthy at 36, 37, 38.
Yeah.
But 50 was that target. Yeah. Not a lot of people can do that. So as we sort of come to a close, what kind of investment platforms are you enjoying using at the moment?
I'm still using all the ones that I was using before, but I mean, with everything that's going on, I took a lot of profits in January. I mean, it's like I had a crystal ball and knew what was going to happen. I didn't, but I took a lot of profits out, and I've just been watching the markets because I'm self-employed. My income isn't as regular as it used to be, so I'm not necessarily pound cost averaging into on a monthly basis.
Yeah,
I'm holding lump sums right now, thinking, okay, at what point am I going in? But it's really hot right now out there in the market. I mean, with the talk of inflation being over 10% by the end of the year, energy prices, all this kind of stuff, I think we're in for a little bit of pain. So I'm holding for the time being, putting off any new money into the markets, but I'm still using the usual ones. I mean, my eToro account right now is so painful to look at. I looked at it yesterday and I'm down thousands and I'm just like, oh. Yeah. But this is the name of the game, and with I've got to turn the notifications off really because I'm getting notifications all the time.
Yeah,
and it's like if I know when I go and look at it, it's bad news.
That's what I do. I turn
off the notifications altogether.
Same with Coinbase. Like I heard people saying about Coinbase. Someone texted me saying, "Oh, Coinbase is folding or something like that, or is gone," and I was like, what? And I was reading it and I was thinking, well, I hope not, and I just double checked it. It wasn't. It was just talking about like an 18% market drop and stuff like this. But Pete, it's been an awesome conversation. It's been enjoyable to get to know you a little bit more from the background to where you are now. Dude, where can people reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, it's Conversation of Money. That's on Instagram, that's on YouTube. Conversation of Money podcast. Then on Twitter, it's Convo of Money because obviously you're character limited and stuff. I've got to say though, this is a great setup and well done.
Loving
it.
It's
like you're leveling up all round. So yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah, enjoying it. I mean, and look, just before we close up, if anyone fancies taking on me and Pete in COD, it's a DM. And
he's the better player, by the way. I'm rubbish.
I don't know.
The amount. No. Seriously, he gets double-digit kills all the time, and I'm just like, he's running around the map like mad, and my reaction time isn't as good as yours.
We have a good play. It's it's good fun. But Pete, awesome, and everyone who's watched, thanks so much, and we'll see you all very soon.